Hi, my name is Dan Couteau, and I'd like to welcome you to this demo video for Xmas Lights 5. When you download it, you'll be presented with a zip file. Just double-click on that, unzip the file, go over to your Applications folder, and look for Maxon. And whatever cinema version you're using, I'm using R13, go into that, Library, Browser, and then just take Xmas Lights 5 and drop it in there. And you're ready to go. So I'll move over to Cinema. And here we are in Cinema. Here's Xmas Lights 5. And just double click on that. And the rig pops into the scene. So the first thing you want to do is open this up and just click the little camera icon to center the rig. The rig is pre-set up with a spline that replicates what the lights would look like if they hung on a Christmas tree. So if we go over here and just click the little plus sign to undock that, Xmas Lights basically works on draping Christmas lights according to a spline that you can drop into this little area here. Before we do that, let's just do a little test render so you can see what this looks like right out of the box. And there you have it. Before we look at some of the settings in depth, let's take a look at some of the animation settings, which are just down here. We'll try blinking lights and do a little test animation of that and see what it looks like. And here it is, the blinking light animation effect. Okay, let's now take a look at the twinkle effect. And here it is. A handsome addition to any snow scene. Okay, let's look at a few other things. Most of the settings are self-explanatory. The global settings will change the color of everything, the intensity of everything, as you can just see from that little quick example there. The shadows are set to off because they're just going to be very system resource intensive, but you can turn them on. There's lots of choices here. Standard Cinema 4D choices. Let's zoom in for a sec so we can look at some of the other features. So cord height into bulb basically determines how far the cord disappears into the plastic housing of the bulb. So right now we've got it at 3, so let's take that to -3. And there you see it. The cord nip into bulb basically determines the scale of the distance between these 2 points here. So right now it's at 75. Let's take that to 125 so you can see what that looks like. And because this is so calculation intensive, sometimes just advancing and moving the timeline and the animation back and forth is going to fix that. So there you see it at 125. You can see exactly what I'm talking about. Let's just reset the view, and we can look at the last parameter. The cord dip between bulbs basically determines how much of a drape is going on between the bulbs here. So if we take that to -55 and do a little refresh, you can see what I'm talking about. Down here we have the plug, and you can switch that off. There's a little end to the cord up there, which is a little hard to see, so let's just zoom in, take a little look at it. There it is there, and you can switch that off and on as well with this parameter here. Just opening up the box, each of the lights can be controlled individually as well if you switch off the global parameters. So you can change the light colors and do whatever you want with that. So as I mentioned earlier, Xmas Lights basically works by dropping in a spline. So I've just created another one here. And you can use a spline primitive. You can also use your own spline you can draw, which I'll show you an example of in a minute. And let's just take a look at that object, change its plane to XZ, and drop that into that little box there. And voila, there you have it. So let's change the number of bulbs to 20. Do a little refresh. And there you have it. So we can take any spline and drop that in. Let's take the star shape, change that plane again to XZ, and drop that in there. And there you have it. So let's open up another file and you can see a more practical use for Xmas Lights. Here I have a generic house that I'd like to decorate with Christmas lights. So what I've done is basically gone into top view and drawn a path around the house that approximates where I'd like the lights to be. So if we go to perspective view, you can just see the spline there. So we take that house spline that I've called it, drop it into here, and there you have the Xmas lights. So just by moving points on the spline closer or further away from the house, you can fine-tune how the Xmas lights sit. If you have a problem with the bulbs facing the wrong way, that's what this parameter here is for, because usually this is set to 0, and in this case you can see that the bulbs would face in the wrong direction. So we just flip that to 180, and depending on what your use is, the bulbs will flip over to the correct direction. So we'll take a look at one last example in Photoshop of wrapping the bulbs around a little figure. Here we are in Photoshop with a little Christmas promo that I designed, and this was what Xmas Lights was originally created for, to wrap around this little figure, because doing this by hand was very difficult. So if we zoom into here, you can see that they look pretty good. The little shadows cast here. So usually what I do with the rig is use it as a place to very quickly approximate where I'd want these lights to be. Then I go in, freeze it, and move the lights and the little wire around with the magnet tool. And that's about it. I'd like to give a little shout out to Salil Reina, who offered some very good suggestions for the plug-in and for the animations. And you can also drop a little song in there, and he made that suggestion as well. And you can check out his website at rainosaurus.com for some really cool downloadable Cinema 4D files, and he's a pretty amazing artist. So that's it. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me, and I hope you enjoy the rig. Thanks.